Good evening, everybody. Tonight, a meeting of the Economic Development Subcommittee. And tonight's presentation will be on Wind Development Company regarding the Hamilton Canal District. Before we begin, I'd like to have the city manager introduce
Bill, let's take a
people
roll call.
present here.
Bill, let's take a roll call. Roll call.
Oh, I'm sorry. I got so excited about the presentation. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Chairman Samaras?
Present.
Counsel Leary?
Here.
Counsel Milonazo?
Here.
3 present.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Tonight, I think it's an exciting opportunity to have a presentation by Mike O'Brien, who's Vice President of Wind Development. He was also City Manager of Worcester for 13 years, so he has great experience in urban settings and development in urban centers. So Mike O'Brien has been doing a great job on this proposal. We've been negotiating this proposal for several months now because we want to make sure that it's an exciting proposal. It's a mixed use of commercial and residential, and I just think it's best to turn it over to Mr. O'Brien. He can do a presentation. I've already reviewed it. I think you're going to really enjoy it, and then you can ask any questions of him.
Oh, okay, before we begin, we have Councilor Corey Belanger here also, and welcomes former Senator Steve Pangiotakis. Why don't you come behind the... Oh, Councilor Rita Murcia. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
So, Brian, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. It's certainly my pleasure to be here before you this evening. As I stated prior, before the full council, Wind Companies is proud to be your neighbor. We're proud to be part of the Lowell community, and we continue with our strategic investments for all the obvious reasons. Your community is one on the move. There's wonderful things happening in a coordinated way, and it's, for us, it's a wise and sound investment as we look forward. Just recently, both add-in lofts and counting house lofts have been added to our portfolio here in Lowell, and those properties are doing far beyond our initial expectations. And we see this presentation, what we'll do tonight with you in the community, and our work today with the city manager and his team as a continuation of that tradition, just that partnership and our continued work together. So you have before you a printed version of the presentation. It is also up on the TV screens, and I'll just quickly walk through that so that you'll have hopefully a very good idea of what our intentions are on parcels 8 and 9 of the Hamilton Canal Innovation District. So to page 2, this is really your vision for parcels 8 and 9, and to your credit, you've done quite a bit of work as a community to determine what the future of the Hamilton Canal Innovation District would be. And so I just highlight that. These are pictures actually from your master plan and some quotes from your master plan as to why you believe these 2 parcels are best suited for residential use and residential development. And you've done great study, and for all the obvious reasons, as I mentioned, these are identified for residential development. On to page 3. This just gives you an idea of the 2 parcels, and I'm sure you're all, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, as well as the council here, infinitely familiar with parcels 8 and 9. This is right from your GIS system, which is a great asset for developers and to have available online. So my credit to you and Mr. Manager and your team, and as well as the council, to have this available. So these are the 2 parcels, and in the corner is obviously of the left-hand corner of page 3 is the Hamilton Canal Master Plan. And so the parcel dimensions are really very efficient for residential development and lend themselves to making sure that we can make full use of those parcels, stay in step with your form code, which is, again, a tremendous asset to have, and have all those approvals in place already for zoning, et cetera, as long as you adhere to the form code. One thing I wanted to make note of, and it may not be common knowledge, is both of these parcels have what's called an activity use limitation on them, meaning there is more or less seasonal, based on water table, contaminants that are subsurface. And so we have to consider that both in the valuation of the parcels and their value as we negotiated. And my hats off to the city manager and his team. They're tough negotiators, to what we came up for value, as well as the construction side of it. We've got to understand that those contaminants exist, and we're going to have to address those, particularly for residential development, which is the highest standard of addressing contaminants because of what would be residential living in the future on those two sites. To page 4, and this just really is the development itself. And those pictures are representative. We've got a lot of work to do on design, and we've got to look very carefully at costs as well as we balance the aesthetics, the form and function, as well as what will ultimately be the price tag. And so you'll see some pictures throughout the presentation. This is just to give you ideas of what we hope to achieve working together with you. So it's state-of-the-art, what we'll produce, as we do with all of WIN's developments. It'll be built once and built right to the highest of standards. And the majority of the units, about 80% of them, will be market and middle-income residential apartments. And we've proven here in Lowell, time and time again, that robust income mix within our properties works very, very well, both when you do your initial lease up right through to when the property is 10, 20 years beyond the day that we cut the ribbon. Because it's two parcels, there'll be two new communities, but they'll be unified. They'll function as one on both sides of Canal Road. We anticipate over 135 apartments in total, and we hope to be able to get north of that with the work of the city manager and his team, obviously following the form code. Our hope is that we can go 6 stories, possibly 7 stories total, but we're going to have to do quite a bit of design work prior to be able to commit to ultimate heights. But the area, the Hamilton Canal Innovation District, calls out that the buildings be some 70 foot in height for these two parcels. Again, from WIN's expertise, it'll be modern amenities and features. We obviously want to encourage people to very much so want to live here and be part of this community and part of Lowell's downtown. We'll do sustainable and green construction, which is so important, both in our commitment to the planet, but also for efficient living and lower cost living for our residents. Through very tough negotiations, but rightfully so, our work to date has identified that this is a great potential for us. We're going to do 10,000 square feet of commercial and retail, either in parcel 8 or 9, not determined yet. We've got to do some design work and consulting work. We started out at 0 square feet for commercial retail, wanting to do what is our classic residential model, and the manager did a very convincing job of having us agree to 10,000 square feet of commercial or retail. We do see real potential here for our existing portfolio, in this case Loft 27, that we own and manage, a premier property here in Lowell, to potentially open up I guess it would be the south side of Loft 27 to the courtyard of Appleton Mills and these new developments, so that it will actually add to life and vitality in that area. Right now, Loft 27 only exits on the opposite side of the building from these two parcels. And these, as I said, renderings are for example. We get into some statistics here and some facts. On the total number of units, as I said, about 135 that we're working towards. We see a mix of 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom units, 66 1-bedrooms, approximately 69 2-bedrooms. 27 of those, a total of 135. We may do more, but the ratios will stay relatively the same. approximately 27 market units. And when we say market, it really depends on what we're going to be able to charge for rents would be based on what is happening in the Lowell marketplace and the desirability of living here, the type of amenities we offer. We obviously hope to be able to set the new standard for market conditions in your downtown. We'll have 81 middle-income units, and that is a program by Mass Housing, and in essence, it allows for housing in downtown Lowell to remain affordable for people making 100% of area median income. In this case, it would be when the property, we hope to ribbon cut and open, approximately $53,000 would be the income for a one-bedroom, and approximately $87,000 would be the income for a two-bedroom. And those incomes would be verified through the regulated processes that were allowed with great respect to our residents, and it's done not only when the initial lease is signed, but it is done annually as part of income certification process. And so that would be the maximum amount you could earn in order to make use of those 81 middle-income units. If you're making $88,000 a year as verified, you would not be eligible to live in those units. And then approximately 27 units would be 50% of area median income, and that would be $36,000 for a one-bedroom and $44,000 for a two-bedroom. Now, in those cases, the program for middle income in the Commonwealth requires there be a 20% affordability. And through our previous presentations to this council, and really an engaged conversation that took place around that presentation, we had detailed to you that in our existing portfolio in Lowell, which is approximately 700 units in various properties, we have a rhythm of approximately 80-20, 80% market and 20% affordable. And as you'll note in those properties, and we're quite proud, they run very well, and the residents are very pleased to be there, and we're hopeful that we'll continue that tradition in this 80-20 mix in this the new buildings being proposed on parcels 8 and 9. So just some important kind of fun facts. We expect that the new middle income and market residents in these properties will total approximately 220. So you'll have new residents in downtown in those market middle income units, some 220 total. Net new real estate taxes, this really gets into the nitty-gritty of your talents in the world of assessment and the requirements there, and then our total valuation once we complete construction. So we just put a range there, and I put in the millions, just showing a 20-year period of what would be the net new taxes to the community, which is always important. From the past hat that I wore, you've got to make sure those premier services are available for our new residents as well, so we see the commitment as being important on our side as well. Total range of development costs, that's pre-development through construction, and having our certificate of occupancy, we see somewhere between 55 and 60 million. That's for both buildings, parcels 8 and parcel 9, total construction costs, total development costs. Construction jobs, about 300 plus during the course of construction. Permanent jobs, and the residential side, it'll be those that manage the property, leasing agents, maintenance team, et cetera. That's approximately 4. And then new permanent jobs, again, range is presented. Leased commercial space, approximately 15 to 40, depending on the use, and that's a question mark. And on page 6, we've got approximately, we've agreed to a purchase price of $250,000. And to the manager's credit and his team, this is where we started to get into, and we can certainly talk in more detail of it, the challenges of the Boston construction market pricing here for us to construct parcels 8 and 9, and what the struggles will be because rents could only generate the revenues to cover X amount of debt. And between the debt that we can issue on this and the grants and tax credits we can assemble, there remains a gap. So in that process, and then, as I mentioned earlier, some of the contamination issues ongoing on the site, we came to the agreed-to price of $250,000, which we believe is fair and reasonable based on a desire to see this actually accomplished, and then valuations based on contamination and other factors. So the P&S calls out for 120 days of due diligence, $10,000 deposit upon execution. That's upon City Council's approval. 30 days post due diligence with a close. As mentioned, we'll be going after Mass Housing's program for middle-income housing, as well as tax credits for the affordable units. And we see that timing as being probably March of 2018 for final submission, and then awards hopefully sometime in the summer of 2018. That will be a seamless partnership. We're very fortunate to work with the City of Lowell and the council and the manager and your state delegation, very active and very engaged. And so we see that as being very important, and a credit to everyone that with these grant opportunities and tax credits will be very likely. And so for timing, if everything were to go perfectly, which for the City of Lowell and for WIN it typically does, we'll see that these professional efforts that will result in a groundbreaking for this. I have incorrectly noted fall of 2017. It'd be fall of 2018, early winter 2019, where we'll physically be coming out of the ground with your newest residential property in downtown. And as always, we'll continue to provide updates through the manager. Transparency and communication is important to the wind companies and wind development. And so on slide 7, this just touches on quickly some of the things that we've talked about over time here in this chamber. We are in a very hot market right now, and so commodity costs, and now in light of the unfortunate destruction that took place in Florida, as well as Texas, those commodity prices will continue to rise for construction materials. Labor costs, which really do parallel that in Boston, and construction costs overall, versus the rent and lease rates that we can achieve here in Lowell, provide a challenge, but I would say one that we can overcome working together and produce a product that ultimately is one that will be very successful for the city as well as for WIN. But that's a challenge. It results in a funding gap, and that's why we do seek partnership with the Commonwealth for the various programs such as tax credits and grants, and the quasi-Commonwealth with Mass Housing. We'll work hard, obviously, to identify and integrate with the Hamilton Canal Innovation District in downtown Lowell in the design, and we'll, as is called out for in the P&S and as is our standard, we'll be working very closely on that design and aesthetic with the city to make sure that there's universal approval of what we intend to pursue. And I would say this is an advantage. We continue with a strong local economy here in Lowell, to your credit, in the state national economy, so that's an advantage. Your partnership and engagement we see is a tremendous advantage, and why we want to pursue this project aggressively. And then we enjoy the communication and transparency between the teams, and as the manager knows, we're open book on our processes, so we want to make sure you're comfortable with what we're presenting, and as well as the numbers when we start to get those a lot closer than we are today. And then page 8, pretty straightforward. It's a view from Pawtucket Canal looking at parcels 8 and 9, and that's the drawing that's up on the screens now. And so per your form code, per your vision, really reinforcing the streetscape. There's your signature bridge, which we were happy to participate in our previous engagement with the city to see that project proceeded forward. And there'll be some changes. The design, as I note here in the wording on the page 8, this is early. We still haven't got the finals designs, and there's lots that will evolve. But you can see that your vision materializing will be quite attractive and quite interesting, and add to the existing fabric of your downtown. And so with that, I want to thank you for the opportunity. I want to thank the manager and his team for a job well done in negotiating with us. And though it's taken longer than we both expected, we believe that it's aged like fine wine. We've got to a place where we can implement and we can make this a reality, and the city will be very proud of the end product. And so with that, Mr. Manager, I'll turn it back to you. And
One thing is, when they talk about the designs of the building, is one of the contingencies that we have in the purchase and sales agreement is any design is subject to the final approval of the city manager. That way, we make sure that it is a signature building, and that's what we want in the Hamilton Canal District. So we reserve that right to approve or reject any plans.
Well, no, thank you for the report. I mean, one thing about this project, it really is exciting because you're talking not only about residential, but you're also talking about commercial space. And that's, I believe, every city council is looking in that direction. We know we need, if it's going to be a successful area, you need the residents in there. When you talk about middle-income people, can you describe who the middle-income people are? And actually, doing some research, that's in a sense, sometimes a forgotten group because we look at market rate and we look at subsidized, but we don't really look well for the people in the middle. So who might they be?
Mr. Chairman, to the credit of policymakers at the state level, as well as the quasi-state with mass housing, they've been monitoring the affordability for all citizens here in Massachusetts, particularly in growth areas like the city of Lowell, in other gateway cities, and even in Boston. And what's happening is the average citizen, those of middle income, they might be teachers, they could be service providers, they might be private practitioners, that they're getting, unfortunately, priced out of the market in the realities of increasing rents, construction costs, people willing to pay more for proximity and location. And so the Commonwealth and the quasi-Commonwealth came up with this concept that they recognize as developers that we would, as a rule, want to go to market wherever we possibly could so that we could see those rents such that they could support the debt to meet the realities of construction costs, commodity costs, and all the things I talked about, and still operate a facility such that there would still be dollars left when the year ended so that you could continue to reinvest and obviously as a for-profit company be able to remain viable in the economy. And so the Commonwealth and the Quasis came up with these programs where they will help subsidize the costs of the construction with granting and tax credits for middle income, but you have to cap the amount that you can charge to 100% area median income, so that as rents rise, because of the great work that the city of Lowell is doing and your efforts in economic development, that call it the average income earner in the city of Lowell could continue to live, if they wanted so, to live in downtown Lowell. The gentlemen or women that helped build parcels 8 and 9 could live in Lowell and not get priced out as rents continues to rise. And that's the sense of the middle income program. It really goes to making sure that in great cities like Lowell or other gateways that are continuing to thrive, that as success continues, that those that have been part of the community for centuries or decades and want to continue, they would not get priced out of the market and have to seek housing elsewhere.
Okay, one more question. When you talk, actually lost my point on that one there. You talk about construction prices, Boston construction prices, Boston fees. What does that mean? Some people say, you're talking about Boston prices. We're in Lowell. What do you mean by that?
What I mean is that even though we're approximately, I think it's 30 miles away from the city of Boston, the dynamics of the construction marketplace, the complexities of this type of construction, the realities of commodity pricing, all of that puts us in, and I say it affectionately, puts us in the Boston metro, Boston megapolis glow of that the success in thriving construction market and development market raises prices. And though there's still robust competition, everybody's very busy. So that for us, the construction costs for us in Lowell will be very parallel, if not equal to that which we undertake as we get closer to Boston, such as Quincy and elsewhere. And it's an economic fact. Even though the distance seems far, the economies overlap and Lowell becomes kind of part of that broader megapolis.
Yeah, so I guess that's what we're seeing with our new high school. One more question. Commercial development. What do you see as the potential for commercial development?
Well, I see the potential being the vision of your communities, and this could be a commercial office place where a small office decides to take 10,000 square feet and provide some level of product or service here or in the community or throughout the region or nation. And it could also be a thriving retail and restaurant location. 10,000 square feet is a big footprint, but it could also be
It's a beautiful
successful.
location, it really is.
And the manager made a compelling argument that there'll be quite a few people coming from your new public garage on the north side of Pawtucket Canal, coming across the new Signature Bridge, walking right past parcels 8 and 9 on their way to the new courthouse. So I think it was about 500 people a day. He said would be walking by 1,500 people a day. So that, from a marketplace with a professional commercial broker, will give us great opportunity to be hopefully selective about what goes there, so it mirrors the vision of Hamilton Canal and Innovation District, but at the same time is economically viable for us too at the parcel. So I would say commercial retail is the opportunity, and we'll do a lot of due diligence and find the right use, and hopefully it happens in tandem and in timing with the ribbon cutting for the residential.
Thank you. Mr. Leary?
No, thank you very much, and I appreciate, the administration working with you and working with Stephen Panagiotakis. I think what we envisioned, I think Councilman Milnauza, you said it well too, we're talking about like a miniature version of Kenmore Square or Assembly Square in Somerville. And ultimately, that's a mixed use, from folks who have some income to be able to go out and spend. And I think the challenge for a lot of us was, the concern was where you'd be looking at folks who wouldn't have that ability. And I think the balance you have here, obviously you have 81 units of folks who are really starting out in the economy, or some that are in middle parts of their career, making close up to $90,000. So that's a significant, that's a decent income, $90,000. That, I think, is important to making what we're all trying to achieve for our downtown. I appreciate the negotiations regarding the commercial space. I think that balance is very important. I think as we look into the rest of the Innovation District, this will, I think, the actual exposure to having an opportunity to live there is going to make that place a lot better than if we had not done it. And I vacillated back and forth. Originally, I was for apartments, and then I wasn't. But then as you really look at it, what other towns have done, Kenmore Square, Assembly Square, the Seaport District, if we're going to be a miniature version of that, this is exactly what we're looking for. And I appreciate the 10,000 square foot of retail or office space. It's a start, and I think that's what we're looking at. So I only had one real question regarding the taxes. Have we done an analysis of what we think the cost would be too, as far as police and fire and public works and schools and what have you? I know we'll be getting taxes, but are we looking at the end of the day, is it actually an asset to the city to have these additional apartments or what have you?
We haven't done that analysis, but I can have DPD do that analysis and do an economic analysis of what this would mean, not only for generating tax revenue, but what the offset for services would have to provide.
No, I think that's a good thing to take a look at the whole picture. I'm very optimistic. I've seen it done before and done effectively. I think the mix is good. I think this is exactly what we're looking for folks before they buy their first homes or condos. That market bracket of 53 to 90 is perfect. So I want to say thank you very much for the time, and definitely thank you for the commercial space. I think that'll be of benefit. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilman Milnauza?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just picking up on some of what Councilor Leary said and some of the questions that the chairman asked. Again, I think this is a very exciting project for the Hamilton Canal Innovation District. I think Lowell is very fortunate to have wind back at the table, so I want to thank you for that. I think the idea of having 1 and 2 bedroom units as opposed to 3 and 4 bedroom units, I think is important for that neighborhood and what we're trying to look in the way of drawing people there. And I think from the standpoint of taxes, if you're looking at a $55 to $60 million development, And then you're looking at, from a real estate perspective, and you're looking at the debt service coverage ratio, the net operating income, and a cap rate of, 5 or 6%, you're going to have value there. You're going to have quite a bit of value there from the standpoint of picking up on what Councilor Leary said relative to the analysis that we'd like to have done relative to the taxes, and can we pay for police, fire, and some students, some kids that might be living there going to the public schools. I think it's a no-brainer. I think we definitely can. And I think the fact that Wynn is back at the table and going to mass housing, where a lot of times when you go to, as you know, because you've done it so often, you get in the queue, and you might not get funded the first year, but the second year you probably will, the third year you definitely will. But with Wynn Development, you're probably going to get funded based upon the dates you shared with us today. So in 2018, we're going to probably see a green light, and it's going to be, key, because we're going to be doing the infrastructure then. So for you to have a shovel in the ground by that time and getting it ready for 2019, again, it's positive news. So again, on behalf of the city and being a gateway city, the administration, in my opinion, brought you back to the table. Senator Panagiotakis' help obviously was key, and I think it's very good that we have the commercial retail space there, and I think you'll see a restaurant there. You'll see, the millenniums, if you will, moving there, paying rent there, and working in the M2D2 building, walking right across the street. So again, I think it's positive news, and I plan to support the vote this evening. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Mercia?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I, too, am glad that you came back to the table. The first time was a little bit awkward, and I'm very glad to know that you left one of the partners back home, because I think we can get along a lot better and understand and have clear minds when we look at this. I'm very happy to see that the ground level will have a commercial retail space. That's very well. I think you presented, it's the way you present things, and I think that you did that. This is new growth, this is exciting. I think that we're trying to include people at the table to have an affordable home. We're calling people like this the working poor. People have a right to have a chance, even though they're working, but they're still having a hard time to make ends meet. Having said that, I'm just curious to know, where are we parking with these people? Is there a garage that they're parking in?
Yes, if you look at that bridge right there, when you walk over that bridge and go behind those buildings, we're going to have the new Hamilton Canal Garage right back there, 975 spaces available there. So that will, and these people will be working families, so most likely they'll be occupying those spaces at nighttime. Mm-hmm. So we can manage that between the people coming in during the day and those that are coming at nighttime.
Right.
Leaving in the morning and coming back at nighttime to work. So
that's
confident
good.
that we're going to have
That's
parking.
very good. So I'm happy to see you again. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you. Councilor Belanger?
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Chairman Samaras, I want to thank you this evening for putting together the subcommittee meeting. I want to thank the manager for his negotiating with Wind Development to keep the momentum going at the Hamilton Canal Innovation District. So, Mr. Chairman, through you to Mr. O'Brien, can you elaborate a little bit more on this activity use limitations that the site has? That seems, I was unaware of that this whole time, and please explain to me what that's all about and how it sort of limits what you can do with that parcel.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the councilor. Activity use limitation, or AUL, is a designation through the Mass Contingency Plan, MGL Chapter 21E. And in essence, that says to the city, to the assessor, to the deed, that there is a residual contaminant that resides at the site. And it tells you through those sources, the DEP filing, the deed restriction on the deed, et cetera, to anybody that if you are to do use on this site here or activity, you can only do this. And it gives you a very specific script because this contaminant exists. So typically it'll say that, down a certain dimension from the surface, say 8 to 10 feet, you're going to encounter X. Could be a barrier that's there that was placed when the site was cleaned up, and you can't go below that barrier without DEP involvement. or it might say that this chemical exists due to seasonal fluctuations in rainfall and water table, and that any type of development is going to have to consider remediation of that. It could be a system that ventilates, it could be a system that constantly filters that water and takes the contaminant out, and it basically, for perpetuity, lets everybody know through, deed restriction and otherwise, that this exists and has to be dealt with because it was not removed when they did the initial contamination remediation.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that, Mr. O'Brien. That's something I was unaware of, and I appreciate you enlightening the council on that information, which sort of does limit what you're able to do with that parcel. So this project, in that regard, does make sense for what you're trying to accomplish. As to what Councilor Chairman Samaras mentioned earlier, the nature of the businesses with the 10,000 square feet of first floor retail, and again, thank you for the compromise, I guess, if you will, where you met the council's wishes on the project.
We'll call it a compromise.
Well,
I call it going to the woodshed.
Whatever you wish to call it, Mr. O'Brien, we'll take it. Well, that's great. That's very pleasing to, I think, myself and many of my colleagues to see that. But I'd like to make a request, if I may. Nothing I'm certainly going to bound you to, but something along the lines of performing arts. When you go to Mill Number 5, just across the street, they have a very quaint little, it's called the Luna Theater, and it brings all the residents together in that room. So it's something we're trying to accomplish in that district as well. So please just keep that in mind as we go forward, and I think it'd be great, because I'm very familiar with your buildings, Mr. O'Brien. I have many friends throughout the downtown, and your buildings are rich in amenities, gyms, basketball courts, movie theaters. I know you are very good at providing your residents with amenities, so that you keep them on the premises, to keep them downtown, and I think we're all pleased with that. So again, please just keep in mind something along the lines of performing arts would be nice to see. But again, nothing we're going to bound you to as we go forward. But it's great to have you here. We know that Wind Development is fully invested in the city, and you're not going anywhere. You are now based in the boot mills right here in downtown. You have done many projects here in the city of Lowell, and this will put the finishing touches. So through you coming back and negotiating with the manager, I think this is going to be a lot more palatable to myself and the city council on this project to spur activity there. And I appreciate the aggressive timelines, if you will, that you and the manager sort of negotiated, where potentially we'll have shovels in the ground next year if all goes well, and I'm very confident that will take place. So your company is a very financially stable company. You are all throughout the country. So I have the utmost confidence in you, Mr. O'Brien, and your organization to make us all proud down there and do a signature project that's going to really help jumpstart us, that area down there. So we appreciate all your efforts on this. We appreciate having you in our city and all you've done, and you're invested in this city, and we want you to stay here. So again, thank you, and I look forward to this presentation again at the full council this evening. Thank you, Mr. O'Brien, and thank you, Chairman Samaras.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the council, thank you for your kind words, and all those things, we believe in our hearts to be true as far as our motivations and our mission. As to the space, we look forward to the engagement of the council and the community for that 10,000 square feet, and as we go through the iterative design process. Again, transparency being key, communication being key. So ideas or potential tenants or people that approach you and your work in the community, we're all ears as to what we can do together to make this a wild success.
Thank you. Manager Murphy?
My understanding is that the design of the new judicial center does not include a cafeteria, so all of those people are going to be looking for a place to have lunch and dinner after work. So I think a restaurant will be a likely choice for a commercial tenant there.
I'm ready. Do you take bids?
I think the manager's already got a seat picked out.
No, Mr. O'Brien, Senator Panagiotakis, and City Manager Murphy, I know this was not an easy bargaining when we asked for 10,000 square feet of commercial space. It's something that the City Council wanted to have, but your willingness to take part in this and do this is really a strong indication that wind development has not only invested a lot of money in Lowell, but wind development is investing their karma, their professionalism. They're truly a part of the Lowell scene, and we want to thank you for that. It's very important. Can I have a motion to accept?
Sure. What I'd like to actually do is move that we actually go on record in support of the vote that's coming before us this evening as a subcommittee. So I would move that.
Clerk, have to call the roll?
Chairman Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Leary.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
Three yeas.
It's a win-win.
Very good.